Oh, it's absolutely wonderful to have the immigrant community and Alpanos, so the Asian Pacific Islander community, the Urban League, poor rural folks, because Oregon Action works both with people of color and poor white communities, and really having all those communities really understand the need to have equity and health outcomes. I tell you, one of my defining moments was when we had a legislative lobby day a couple of weeks back, and a volunteer from our Medford office stood up and said, "Well, so why are we dealing with race around healthcare reform? Because there's a lot of inequities in our healthcare system." And I said, "You're absolutely right. You know, there's inequity in rural, urban health. There's inequity in how women are treated as compared to men in healthcare reform. There's a lot of equities." And I said, "But you know what? The reason Oregon Action is focused here because no one else is." Right? If we don't bring race into the equation, no one else is going to bring it up. We have groups that are dealing with seniors and their health inequities. We've got women's groups dealing with women. We've got youth groups that are dealing with youth. But if Oregon Action was not at the table talking about eliminating racial disparities in health outcomes, the conversation would have never begun. And when I was able to say that to her, she got it right away. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And so the whole room was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, now I understand." Because, of course, we as an organization tend to lead any of our issue campaigns with a racial analysis, right? What is the impact of racial minority communities in whatever the policy change that we're working towards? Because we want to be clear that, yes, it is about race, and let us explain to you why race is such an important piece of this. We do not have a youth-specific program, but we outreach to youth all the time. So as an example, when we were doing racial profiling listening sessions, we actually partnered with Open Meadows High School and had Open Meadows students conduct one of the listening sessions themselves. And listening sessions was really around getting the police and the community to come together so that the community could share what their experiences have been with Portland police around the issue of racial profiling. And I tell you, one of my proudest moments was being in that room with 100 high school age youth. And you know, the pants are sagging. They look weird like they always have, right? Kids always look weird to adults. But they were so respectful and so responsible. And they shadowed us for a couple of the programs we did so that they could model what they were going to do after them. But I was absolutely confident that they would create a program very similar to ours, but it would be based on youth facilitating it, youth running the program, and youth actually asking the questions and setting up the format. And it was one of the most fabulous programs that you could imagine. And it was that way because it was the youth owned it, right? It was their, it wasn't an adult saying you got to do it X, Y, Z. You got to do it the same way we've done it, right? It's like, here's the frame, you figure out how you want to make it happen. And the police were very engaged in that program, and they still talk about how wonderful that particular one. Now, we did 6 around the city, but that's still my favorite one. It's the one that the youth led. And we tend to do that. We tend to work with alternative school programs and community-based partnerships that develop youth leadership. And so we've done some with Pangea Project, which is a project that develops leaders from disenfranchised communities, and they actually do trips to other countries where they actually get to experience what life is like in those countries. And so we're working with them now to help them develop some leadership skills so that they can go out and talk about what their project is and help them raise money to support their efforts to take a trip later this summer. And so we look for those opportunities to partner. We've partnered with Portland State University to have those students actually develop an evaluation tool for us so that we can use to evaluate our leadership development program. So even though we don't have a youth-specific program within the organization, we look for those opportunities to partner where it makes sense, where we can add value to the youth program and vice versa.